moving on, the prolonged drought that has become, actually we had that story earlier on, but of course that is a big talking point here in the country. And let's get into this particular interview, just borrowing off from that report from the UNCTAD, which shows that FDI flows have been growing. I want now to bring in Johnson Ndege, who is head of research at Saiton Investments. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you too.
And just in brief, what do you make of the outcome of that report by UNCTAD showing Angola is leading, followed by South Africa, Botswana? Kenya is not among the top 5.
I think it depends on how the report has looked at the entire funding FDI coming into the country. I believe it's not sector related. Kenya has done well in key sectors, and we also realize overall there are sectors that we are not really very advanced and to attract, to have global funders have appetite, but there are key areas that has significantly attracted FDIs.
All right. Yeah. And just linking FDIs with the Kenyan housing sector, we've seen reports by World Bank showing there's a major housing shortage in Kenya. And of course, Saiton, not only do you provide data showing trends, you're also key investors in the real estate sector. What do you make of this sort of position where we are as a country where there's a housing shortage, at the same time we're seeing a construction sector booming? Where is the mismatch?
We are actually getting there. One thing is that we have the shortage is mainly in affordable housing, or the bottom of the pyramid, and they have come challenges that are making us not able to especially service this part of the market. And that's where we are getting. We've seen real estate really getting more institutionalized. And I can also say real estate is also receiving quite a lot of foreign direct investment. And it's just a matter of time we'll be getting there. We've seen government coming to also try and make that area better. For instance, there's now a rebate to have corporate tax to 15% for any developer who is able to venture into the low-end housing and able to do about 400 units per
1,000 units.
Yeah, 400,000 units per actually it's 400 units per year. If you're able to, you get tax rebate. Then we've also seen government coming in a few months. They scrapped some key fees, including NEMA fees. They scrapped NCA fees, National Construction Authority fees. They've also come in and even scrapped official search fees. And these are some of the things that we are seeing that will enable faster movement into getting to service this market gap.
All right. So Johnson, talk to us in terms of how big is the market gap? Because there's a number of statistics that have been thrown upon, some saying we have a shortage of 200,000 units per year, others saying it's much higher than that, at about 500,000. What is the actual figure from the authoritative sources?
World Bank has put it to around 246,000 per year, with a backlog of close to 2 million units, affordable units or housing units to the public. National Housing has been talking about 250. So you could see the figure is around that point. Our own approximation also points to around that figure in terms of just sizing the market. And I think one thing would be, it's not about just looking at the figures, and most important will be what are we doing about it.
Sure.
And we've seen key issues. We are lagging in one or another, but it's something that can actually be gapped. Yeah.
And still linked to that, Johnson, of course, we are seeing a number of initiatives coming through with foreign-based investors coming to invest in the Kenyan housing real estate market. Yeah. And there's also the oversupply dilemma, where we're seeing landlords saying we are not having, the uptake is not as they had projected. And of course, this is a very tricky trend for people who have invested in that line. Of course, majority having credit financed these facilities?
We've seen the market always, it's typical for a typical market to hit. Actually, when any supply cannot meet a demand of 6 months, then a market hits and it's able to correct itself. But yes, we've seen a segment of the market, for instance, in our report about a month ago, we were able to see a possible oversupply in commercial office, and especially a certain segment, mainly grade B office, with some problems in grade A not being there. We've seen some segment of the market having oversupply, especially the apartment aspect. But this cannot be generalized. One thing is that real estate is quite unique in terms of location, and there are very ripe markets that still needs to get, and especially the bottom pyramid of the society, and the whole opportunity in counties brought about by devolution. Yeah.
Speaking about counties and devolution, we are going to the elections, and there's always that feeling that things might slow down, especially for people in the real estate. But more importantly is, what should Kenyans expect from the various presidential candidates in terms of addressing the housing million-dollar question of making housing affordable? Because as we speak, rental is the order of the day in most urban cities, where just a small portion of people living in those areas are able to own houses or even construct. And of course, this is hinged on the figures we're getting from Central Bank in terms of the mortgages that are in the market, at about 20 to 22,000 mortgages. What sort of conversations should we have moving forward from politicians in addressing the housing question?
The biggest role of any government is to provide an enabling environment. And what we should expect from our politicians or the presidential aspirants or different parties is to clearly state how are they going to provide an enabling environment for any other player to be able to service this market. And this will come in through infrastructure, especially trunk infrastructure. And we are having a case where typical development, growth of people, urbanization is growing more than the trunk infrastructure that is coming in, including access, proper access, including sewer, including power, including clean water. So this is what a typical private investor or any other investor that should be coming in, even at individual level, needs to see. So that enabling environment. Another one will come in regulation. We've seen the current government done great in trying to scrap the fees I talked about. And perhaps the other thing will be, how do you enable this in terms of tax rebate, in terms of ensuring that it is easier to service this, in terms of also providing better credit terms for the end user to be able to uptake this. And that is precisely, objectively, what you should be expecting from our political
class. So finally, Johnson, of course, the NASA presidential flag bearer, Raila Odinga, did mention that once he takes over the leadership of the country, he'll set a fixed rent for Nairobi and some of the big towns. What are your views on this in brief? Is it achievable, or is it just rhetoric?
Actually, fixing rental in real estate is not new. In UK, they used to have an act called rent restriction, but it was catered to a certain group during industrialization. But in a free market in Kenya, I think that can be attained again through policy rather than through a statement or an executive order. It is a long-term aspect and cannot be attained in short term. Property, like any other good, is controlled by supply and demand forces.
Okay. Perfect place to end the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Johnson Ndege, who is the head of research and real estate at the Saiton Investment Firm, talking to us on trends we're seeing in the real estate. He is quite optimistic that fixing Kenya's housing problem is a question of policy and not political rhetoric. Well, that's where we leave it at. Many thanks. It has been a pleasure bringing you the business today throughout